Welcome, everybody. Right on time, I see. Yes, nice. If you guys want to make fun of me, I had a pretty big mess up on my dad joke of the day this morning. So find me on Facebook and laugh at me just like my kids have been laughing at me all day. Good to connect. Thank you all for coming today. If you're coming here for Master Your Financials with bookkeeping and some tax strategies, awesome. You are in the right space because that's what we are here to do today. Usually taxes, finances. I know as a business coach, it's one of the things my clients like to avoid most. And I gotta imagine that it is probably one of the toughest things to talk about with strangers specifically, and even ask questions on a group like this. So we're trying to come in with some great golden nuggets today. I'll introduce you to our expert panelist here in just a moment. And really what we're hoping that you get out of this today is that you're able to walk away, again, with some good golden nuggets, and then B, with an opportunity to really just learn how you can keep some more of your money through some good tips and tricks in the industry on how you can arrange your finances and use your money in a good way to keep more of it. Because that's what I really like to talk about, is how to keep my money, not necessarily different ways to give it away. So if you all don't know me, I'm Jeff Kuhn. I'm one of the franchise partners here for Cyberbacker Maryland and DC and Delaware. I'm also a speaker and a trainer by profession. I'm a leadership coach, so I coach a lot of businesses when I'm not on these calls leading some good workshops. And that's one of the reasons I love to do these workshops, by the way, is because it's part of my passion just to help businesses and solopreneurs and entrepreneurs be more successful. And so I love to come from value and have this opportunity each month to talk to all of you. So Shara, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
All right, and hey everyone, good afternoon. I'm Shara. I work closely with Jeff and I'm part of the Cyberbacker Maryland's team. So what I do is I'm a growth backer and I help clients to evaluate their business and to figure out what's the best help that they could really have for their business. So I'm really helping them to figure out their one thing and what's the best support that they could have to be more successful in their business. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Love it. Thank you, Shara. Irene, what do you do?
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. So my name is Irene. I'm the career backer here in Cyberbacker, Maryland. So I am in charge of partnering our clients with highly skilled, high caliber cyberbacker. That's it for me. Thank you.
Usually when I walk around at networking events, I realize it's just easier for me to say, we recruit virtual assistants. And so Shara helps to figure out what tasks they can do, and Irene helps to find amazing people. So thank you both. I did mention again that we've got some special guests, and we'll introduce them here in just a moment. If you weren't able to make last month, we talked about a key habit that you can form, a hack that helps you have a spectacular year. You can reach out to Shara and find out more. If you weren't able to make it, she can set you up with the link and the materials that we handed out. In the meantime, here we are. Here's some special stars that we've got for you. They're going to have a lot of time to speak and ask you questions and have you ask some questions back. But in the meantime, if both of you could just jump off mute and give us a real quick introduction, let everybody know what they're in store for, that'd be awesome. Go ahead, Seth, take it away.
Hi everyone, so I'm Sess. So I am a head backer. I work with Irene and Shara, wherein I train your cyber backers to make sure that all of your needs would be taken care of.
Love it. Thank you very much. Krista, what's up?
Hi, everybody. I'm Krista Hickman. I am with KBS T&M CPAs and Consultants in Hunt Valley, Maryland. I've been in the profession about 21 years. I'm a certified public accountant and I also specialize with construction industry companies. So I'm a tax principal with the firm. So thank you.
And just to put my little stamp of approval on Krista, so you all know, it's not like I just went and opened up the phone book and turned to K instead of A for some reason. Krista is tax principal for Cyberbacker Maryland here locally. That's who we've been using for years. And prior to that, we're using her in other businesses before that too. So we do have a lot of trust in Krista and know that she's going to give you some great conversation to talk about today. Just wanted to point that out. So if you all have ever been to any of these with us before, you know that I just like to get some good discussion going. I know that really when we get our juices moving, we have an opportunity to learn more because we're engaged, we're involved, and we're thinking. So here's my question for you. If you could wave a magic wand surrounding bookkeeping and taxes in your business, what would you wish for? All right, that's a weird question to ask. If you could wave a magic wand surrounding bookkeeping and tax strategy, what would you wish for? And if you want to make that a little bit simpler, what are you hoping to learn today? What made you decide that this was going to be worth it? So either something that you would hope that bookkeeping and tax keeping could fix in your business, or something that you're really hoping to learn. So we're going to break into a small breakout room. It's just going to be 3 people. We're going to give you just 5 minutes to just answer the question with each other. All right, get ready for that magic blue button. Here we go. I don't know how to do that anymore. Who's spoiled by technology? Me. I know, Evan, that's your job, technology, for sure. Hannah with you today?
A curse and a blessing.
Yeah. So, a quick show of hands. Anybody that would like to share something that they really hope to get out of it. I'll tell you what, both Seth and Krista, we're hoping we're coming up with some great questions because they are here to give some value today. So what would you like to wave a magic wand and fix in bookkeeping or taxes in your business?
I think the most prominent thing that we talked about was just, I think everybody was pretty much on the same page about wanting to learn and know everything that they can about the subject.
Yeah, I feel you there. I did my taxes myself for a while because I felt like I needed to. And then now when I think about that prospect, my heart starts to pitter patter in weird, crazy, scared ways because I realize how much I just don't know. Every time I look at the tax code book, which is that thing, great. Who else? One more thing. What did, in the breakout room, what did you talk about?
I think Kay is raising her hand. Kay, go ahead, Kay.
Sorry, Kay, you're behind my other monitor. I didn't see you over there. Let me move my screen. Go ahead. What's up, Kay? Good to see you.
No worries. Hey, how are you doing? I was sharing with everyone, I'm a financial advisor, but I work in a bank program. So when I meet with clients, I'm barred from giving tax advice. I have general information. So when I'm meeting with clients, I always, especially if they have more complex life changes or things going on, I try to tell them to engage with a professional like Krista. I say, because for taxes, you need to have skill, will, and time. If you're missing those things, you can sometimes get yourself into a jam. But I wanted to come and learn from you all and hear from Krista and hear from your group areas where, namely business owners, but other individuals, it can possibly do some things themselves, and then when to loop in professionals such as bookkeepers, enrolled agents, and CPAs. Yeah. Thank you.
Love that. Exactly. When are you at the point to loop others in? Great question. I'm in a similar position, Kay. I'm a business coach, right? And so I have clients ask me all the time. They're like, well, Jeff, what do you do about this? So I'm like, I was like, I do. I seek advice from my CPA. That's what I do. I was like, everybody's situation is different. Everybody's at a different tolerance in many ways, right? Everybody's at a different income level. Everybody's got different things going on with their own home and all that other kind of stuff. Talk to financial planners, talk to bookkeepers, talk to CPAs. And that's why they're here today. So great. Love that everybody came, learn today, and figure some of these things out. So think of some of those questions as we get started. And speaking of getting started, let's go ahead and do that. So introductions once again. Seth, hey, take it away.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Sess. I'm basically a head backer person that trains cyberbackers, your virtual assistant, to help you with bookkeeping. And I'm also a bookkeeper by profession, I guess you could say. So a little thing about bookkeeping, just in case you get, what do you call this, confused with the difference between a bookkeeper and an accountant. So with bookkeeping, it's basically the process of, let's say, basically recording, organizing, and managing your financial transactions within, of course, your business. So that would involve systematically recording the day-to-day financial activities of your business, such as that could be purchases, sales, receipts, payments, and creating accurate and up-to-date financial records. So the difference between a bookkeeper and an accountant, Krista can also chime in if she has her 2 cents when it comes to this one. So of course, both of them, Krista and I, play important roles in managing your financial records, but they have distinct responsibilities and skill sets. So of course, the number one that I could think of would be the scope of work. So we as bookkeepers, we primarily focus on, of course, recording the daily transactions, maintaining organized records, reconciling accounts. So we handle the day-to-day bookkeeping tasks such as data entry, categorizing transactions, anything that has to do with the generating of basic financial reports, wherein accountants have a broader scope of work that would involve interpreting, analyzing, what else? Summarizing financial data recorded by us, the bookkeeper. So we go hand in hand. So they would prepare the financial statements, conduct audits, provide financial analysts and advice, of course. So that would help businesses comply when it comes to tax regulations. So regulatory requirements is also a big thing that would differentiate between bookkeepers and an accountants. So one of the most asked questions that I get basically is, how do we keep our financial books updated? So of course, that would be number one, would be establishing a routine. So that would, let's say, determine the type of transactions that you have, whether it would be daily, weekly, monthly. Consistency would always be key in staying on top of your financial records. So one of the questions that is flashed right here is, when was the last time you reviewed your books, right?
Yeah, so when was it? In the chat. You don't have to, you can even do it anonymous. Gotta admit, I have a great P&L spreadsheet, and it's got everything listed exactly the way that I know my accountant likes to pull it out and put it into the tax forms. And sometimes I open it up and realize I'm about 3 months behind. I used to be in a really good system where I would just at the end of every month type those numbers in to make sure they were right. But every now and then I open it up, I'm like, oh my golly, I've just skipped 2 months. So how about you? Do you guys have a system for, and is it on your calendar for how often you track your numbers? The money coming in and the money going out. Is it monthly? Is it weekly? Is it quarterly, like Susan wrote in?
Jeff, I think that's so important to put it on your calendar. Set time aside. It's more likely that you'll do it consistently.
And that's usually what happens for me, Krista. Again, I'm a business coach. I tell people to do this all the time, but if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist. And so sometimes, because something's happening on the 1st or the 2nd that I would usually do it, I move it and I don't replace it in a different spot. And that's why I skip it. So great. Good first question. Love that. Write it down. If you don't have it on your calendar, get it there. Make sure it's a regular time to review your books. Go ahead, Seth. Sorry, I told you I was going to interrupt a lot.
No, that's totally fine. And viewing books is very much important when you are making your business grow and all of that. So the next slide would be, what are the main challenges or pain points you're experiencing with your current bookkeeping setup? Since most of the clients, they just use an Excel sheet, they sometimes use notebooks. That would actually depend on the type of person you are. So what are the type of challenges you have when you are basically reviewing your bookkeeping setup?
Yeah, good. So somebody chime in. What challenges are you facing right now? So if you've started your own bookkeeping process, do you know how to set it up? Anybody experiencing any other pains with setting up their bookkeeping process and how they're tracking their numbers? What's the number one reason, Seth, that businesses reach out to you? And you can go ahead, Evan. I'm sorry, Evan came off mute. Go ahead.
I was just going to say the number one maybe annoyance or inconvenience that I run into is, for me, probably just if I don't get a physical receipt for something, or maybe even an email receipt, which I would think is even better. And then if I also don't write it down immediately, forget about it. Literally forget about it. That's what happens. And so I've been trying to, when I go to new places and pay with a business card, I try and put it, when the option is available, I try and put in our business email to have the receipt sent there. But then there are other times where I'm so used to going to a place and just saying, don't need the receipt personally when I go and pay something for myself. And so sometimes if I were to use the business card, this hasn't happened. This hasn't really happened, but I suspect it could happen. I fear I might just not get a receipt and just not even remember to say anything about it. So in a nutshell, receipts.
Tracking spending, receipts. Love it. Good. So Seth, what do they reach out to you for?
Basically helping them to be accountable. For accountability when it comes to, of course, maintaining documentation, may it be through email, all of that. So they usually say, oh, it's all over the place. I don't know where to start. So
Yeah.
that's like one of the challenges.
Good. James, I saw you came off mute.
Sorry, I'm late. I did want to respond to this. One of my biggest frustrations is I've invested in technology, and yet I'm still having to document everything in a spreadsheet. I just can't seem to get away from the spreadsheet. We basically log all income and expenses into a spreadsheet and import them into our accounting system. That's my biggest frustration.
Sometimes it's that tactile feel, right? No doubt. Good. Well, thank you for sharing that. Go for it.
So of course, that would be in line with how do you record your revenue, sales transactions, and your daily transactions in the books. So people would rather just, like what Evan mentioned, just forget about it. Someone would just also use Excel files. So how do you record all of those transactions?
Great point, especially with all the different ways to pay these days, right? Venmo and Zelle, and every now and then I still get an old school check. Did I record the check? Did I remember to cash the check? Oh, right. Are you making sure that from a ledger standpoint that every job that you did, you actually got paid for and the money was put into the bank and then classified right? Love that. Great. Good. So you hold them accountable to make sure they're recording it and getting the receipts for spending it. Great.
Yep. So next one question that I have would be, what type of resources are you willing to allocate towards improving your bookkeeping practices?
Talk to me a little bit more about that. So the resources that you're willing to allocate towards improving the practices. So you're saying the time, the budget, the personnel. So if somebody's taking some extra time to put into bookkeeping, what do you recommend?
So that would depend on let's say, the type of business you are in, the goals that you have. But if you are not up to date when it comes to your books, I would say a weekly meeting with your bookkeeper would help you be up to date as soon as possible. So there's that.
And when you say budget, talk to me about budget. If somebody was going to spend some money on making sure that bookkeeping was working well based on some of the pains that we just heard, and I'm a Cyberbacker franchise owner, so obviously the first one might be to get a bookkeeper from Cyberbacker. And other than that, James mentioned software, Evan mentioned tracking receipts. What else would you recommend from a budget standpoint? Personnel standpoint, it's bookkeeper. Budget standpoint, what do you recommend in terms of maybe some programs or a way to make sure that you stay on top of that?
So one of that is the most used tool. I'm not sure if everyone's familiar. It's called QuickBooks. So that's like one of the number one tools that is worth investing on, besides, of course, your bookkeeper and your time. So very helpful when it comes to tracking those. If you are willing to try and use QuickBooks rather than an Excel sheet. So that would be a number one thing.
Love that. I use Intuit for receiving payments in my coaching and speaking. And so it's obviously also part of QuickBooks, which amazes me because then it connects to my bank account. So from that perspective, it knows every time I spend money and it pulls certain spending right into the right category, right? Which is pretty cool. So good. Love it. So final one here. So how do you determine if your bookkeeping services are meeting your expectations, Seth? Tell me about it.
So of course you would want to view everything. You would want to know if the bookkeeping services are meant for you. If, of course, number one, everything is up to date. You know what you're spending. You're allocating your budget into the right part of your business. So you get to keep your financial standpoint at the back of your mind every single time that you swipe your card, you pay, making sure that your bookkeeper holds you accountable. It could be as little as, hey, you're over budget for buying Taco Bell. Maybe, something else. So, it would always be number one when it comes to bookkeeping.
Love it. That's funny that you mentioned Taco Bell. My wife was craving some Taco Bell last night. The first time I've had it in like a year. I'm sure my stomach agreed with it. But anyway, that's funny that you mentioned that. So anyway, all right. Any questions? So just from a standpoint, if you have any questions right now to ask to Seth, the bookkeeper, feel free to throw them in now. We're going to have some questions to ask to Krista later. And then at the end, if there's still some extra time, ask questions back to both of them. So any questions to Sess currently? Speak now or forever hold your peace for 25 minutes. Okay, good. Well, for sharing, Sess, here is her information. Again, if you want to reach out and ask some questions on the side that might have to do with your own personal finances and bookkeeping, definitely send her a quick email, screenshot it in 3, 2, 1. All right, here we go. Hey, Krista, what's up?
Hi, thanks. So those were a lot of great recommendations, of which, I just kind of like parlay to is the QuickBooks. Can be so helpful coordinating between bookkeeper and the accountant as well, especially the on version. QuickBooks is pretty user friendly, and then if you have the online version, you can easily give access to your bookkeeper and your accountant, so that the lines are open between all parties. I think that's so important. One of the things that I see when businesses use only Excel is that they may be missing out on deductions, not necessarily on reporting too little revenue. I mean, that's the report, but it's what you spent your money on. And, making not necessarily the receipts being the most important part, but making sure that everything that goes through your bank account is being accounted for. Whether that be, for office supplies or paying any subcontractors that you have, professional fees and the like, but just, it's a lot that people don't necessarily consider everything they spent money on from their business. And it's so important. So you can really be losing out on or paying extra tax that you don't need to pay. So.
Yeah, and Evan chimed in with a really good gold nugget there too. He made a business card, and I would hope, if not everybody on this call has one of those already, separate account that accesses a separate card. And in my opinion, it should be in a separate bank, just so that it's not as easy to transfer money back and forth. These days, it's still not too hard. It used to be a lot harder in the past, but it's opening up a couple of different apps maybe and so on. So, but nugget in terms of capturing it, and again, link that to your QuickBooks. So perfect. So Krista, you're ready. You just tell me when to change, but I'm going to let you go through your gold nuggets. Yep.
So wanted to try and show you some ways where you can not lose money by making sure that you have some of the basic functions of a business in place. So after you obtain that bookkeeper, which is extremely important, because they have a lot of expertise and maybe some more time where you could focus on selling for your business, and then that's your. Whereas you can hire a professional to help with your bookkeeping and then the tax returns. And I think that, kind of back to, I believe it's Kay, what she's about, when to in a CPA or when to loop in a bookkeeper is when you're starting your business. It may not necessarily be, you may not feel like you have the budget to do it at that time, but when you're putting your team together for your business, it's really important to do that as close to the setup of the business as possible, because I've seen a lot of times where business owners will make mistakes because they were trying to save money on professional fees when it's really going to end up costing them a lot more money in the second and third year of the business. So that's really important. So one of those things that, and can help you do if you have employees, is making sure that all of your payroll tax returns, if that's applicable to your business, are filed timely. One of the easiest ways to lose money in your business is by incurring fines and penalties for not filing these forms timely. And they can really add up very quickly. The IRS states very high interest rates and penalty rates. And one of the new things that the IRS came out and said this year that probably affects a large majority of businesses is the filing of 1099s for any subcontractors you may hire. So that could be the bookkeeper that you hire. That could be any subcontractors, an agent pay for marketing help. All those types of businesses you may need to issue what's called a Form 1099 to. They were to the government January 31st. So we're past that due date. But even if you miss that due date, you still want to file them. The rule before was you could file up to 249 of those forms and not have to file electronically. The IRS drastically reduced that number to 10 for 2023 forms. So
Small difference.
yeah, so a whole different bucket of businesses that really may not work with that outside professional. And this would be another opportunity. They have a lot of penalties this year or even the next year since they really reduced that ceiling level, but just something to kind of pay attention to. So another area, the next slide, where you can save money by being proactive is when you have your own business, you're not generally getting a W-2 where federal withholding would be done or state withholding would be done. A lot of times you have to project how much profit you're going to make in your business to then pay the taxing authorities before you file your year-end tax returns. So I'm not going to go into all these numbers on here. I'm sure Jeff will send out the slides afterwards. But one of the biggest things to know is that the IRS and the states both anticipate and expect and penalize if you're not submitting the tax throughout the year. And they do this quarterly. So federal and Maryland, there's usually the dates are April 15th, June 17th, September 16th, and then January 15th of the following year. Those are when you have to submit estimated tax payments if you project you will have tax due on your individual return. So a lot of your businesses might be set up as LLCs, may or may not go directly on your individual return, but it will end up there. So that's where you're going to pay the majority of the tax. So if your spouse may have income, you have to kind of factor that in. So again, this is a really good reason to loop in a CPA. The first year you set up your business, it's probably not as important from the penalty standpoint. The federal and states base your estimates, these quarterly payments that you need to make on the prior year tax. So if you're just starting your business, you may not have had much tax liability in the prior year that wasn't covered by withholding from a paycheck. So, but it's good to get in a routine of, let's say, setting aside a certain percentage of your revenue each month. Some of the clients that I work with, I suggest they set up a separate savings account. And right now you can get really high interest rates on savings accounts. So monthly, set aside a certain percentage brought in.
So quick
Jeff,
question.
do you have a question?
Well, it's a question to everybody here real quick. So who's in their first year of business? Okay. And who's been in business more than a year?
Just over.
Yep. That means all of us are at a place where estimated taxes will be due then, right? So definitely great advice there in order to understand what we're putting in there. Okay, Krista, keep going.
Sure. Okay. So, there's different methods you can use with this, but again, talk to your CPA, talk to your accountant. Some bookkeepers may be able to help with as well. So another way that you can help your family with the next slide is if you have a sole proprietorship, if you have a partnership, a lot of times you can hire your children, and then the children aren't necessarily subject to all of the same taxes. Yeah, so Jeff could hire a lot of children to work in his business. And so what he'll do is, yeah. So kids, most of the time kids can earn up to almost $14,000 for 2023 without actually having to file a federal tax return or actually owe any tax. But what those children could do is some of that money they earn and start an IRA account, a retirement account. And so that's also a way for you to get a deduction for your business. If you're paying your children wages, that's going to reduce the amount of tax you pay to the government on your profit for your business. So I think that's kind of a win-win for a lot of people. Now, there are rules surrounding it. They'd be doing something, they could be filing, they could phone calls, depending on their age, you come up with different ways to help your business, but that's also going to teach them a lot of responsibility. And then there's not as much savings when you're hiring a spouse, but that isn't subject to the federal unemployment tax. That's a real small tax, but either way.
Let me pause here just a moment. I got to imagine I'm
Yeah.
not the only one with kids. And so from paying kids, you know, as my CPA asking this question around, but you know, as far as paying my kids go, like if I'm paying my children, I mean, can I just hand them cash? Do I have to do like the W-2? Like, what's the right way to pay my kids?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so the right way is by having them fill out all of the normal paperwork that you would have any other type of employee fill out. So an I-9, the federal withholding form, which is the W-4, they would want to check the box where they're exempt from withholding. So that would be a W-4E. There'd be a form for their state that you're in as well. And then if you don't have other employees, it may or may not be an idea for you to do it for your business. But if you already have other employees, you have payroll set up, you know, you're already going to be filing payroll tax returns. It's definitely something to consider, but you really do need to treat them like any other employee. So it doesn't mean just paying them one time a year. It means paying them for the work they complete. So coming up with an hourly wage is a really good idea. Cutting them a check out of the business, issuing them a W-2 at the end of the year.
All right, I'll talk to my wife.
Great
I mean, my
question.
HR department. I mean, okay, great.
So some other excuse me, to save money or through retirement plans. I'm not sure how many people on the call are involved in real estate businesses, but a lot of times businesses that are involved in real estate, you know, that is their retirement plan. So these suggestions may not be for that type of business, but for a lot of other businesses, whether it be service-based businesses, setting up some sort of retirement plan for you and or your employees can be very beneficial. Not only will the business receive deductions to match the contributions from your employees, but the state of Maryland with 2020, I think was the first year where it was really put into place. They have a new program where certain businesses have to have some sort of plan set up or allow their employees to set up an IRA through the state. So different states are really getting on the bandwagon of making sure their employees have some way to set aside money. In a lot of the plans, you as a business owner don't necessarily need to put in money for the employees. Like you could have a 401 plan and just not offer any matching. There's lots of different types of that can be set up. And I listed here the type that still can be set up for 2023 and allow you to get a business tax deduction, even though we're after year end. So you're a sole proprietor, you can set up called a self-employed IRA. And then the amount that you could put into that for your own retirement is based upon the profit of your business. You can also set up SEP accounts for employees. Those two types of accounts have very administrative fees and are pretty easy to set up. A lot of different banks can help you with that. But a 401k and or a profit plan would allow you and or your employees to put away an amount of money in a retirement plan. But those do include some annual fees for the plan itself.
All right.
And with the way that recruiting is going, if you have a business that does have a number of employees, it's a really good selling point for why they should come join your company, you know, maybe versus someone else. So
Love that.
simple IRA, that one had to set up by October 1st to take effect for 2023. So you could set that up for 2024. And a simple IRA usually does require the income to match, gets 2 or 3% depending on different criteria. But the next slide will show you there is some relief that you can get for setting up a retirement plan for your employees. And there is a federal tax credit. It's called the Retirement Plan Startup Cost Tax Credit. And for the first 3 years that the plan is set up, you can get up to a $5,000 tax credit depending on the fees that you paid to set up the plan. Those costs that are eligible for this include startup costs for the plan itself, which that would mainly be more towards a 401k plan. And then also if you incur costs for educating your employees about the plan or how to make investment options. You do have to have less than 100 employees. So this is really geared towards smaller companies. So it's not a huge credit, but yet it can make instituting one of these plans a little more palatable with that.
I don't think anybody on the call looking around. I see Sherry's autopilot, so she might be the only one, but I don't think anybody else on the call, any company here with over 100 people. Correct me if I'm wrong. No? Good. All right. So all eligible. I'm looking at that bottom line though, so I'm going to let you keep talking. Keep going. I want to know what this credit is. Credits.
Oh, okay. Sure. So yeah, so with the form, mostly based upon if you've incurred fees to set up the plan. But there's also a $500 credit available if your plan has what's called auto enrollment. So let's say you set up a 401k plan. A lot of times employers don't require the employee to actually be a part of the plan. They may elect to be part of the plan after they've worked at the employer for a certain amount of time, depending on the requirements of that particular employer. But where a lot of plans are going is saying, okay, once you're eligible for the plan, we're going to auto enroll you at a certain percent of your salary and put that into the plan. So the employee has to actually file a form to elect out of being in the plan. So this is encouraging employers to encourage their employees to participate. So it's, part of the government's way of trying out for businesses and employees in their retirement. So it's trying to reward them for that.
I love that. So instead of checking yes or no, it's opt out versus opt in.
Yes, exactly. Good. Much harder to opt out. I mean, it's not hard, but somebody has to take an action to do that. So
right, take some effort. That's why the subscription model works great. If you have any form of business that allows you to get clients in with a subscription model, let's talk about that. I mean, we should
certainly works for the gyms that I have a membership with.
That's right. Amen to that, right? You can make it a low enough paying that they keep cutting me money every month. Yeah.
Yes. Notice I said gyms, not gym.
Yeah. I mean, look, Amazon's a great example. And this is totally off topic, but just on topic. I noticed yesterday, maybe sometime this week, that Prime is up to like $150 now. And they make you watch ads for the TV stuff these days.
They're charging an extra bucks.
Yeah, you can pay like $3 a month.
It was when I signed up for it, and it's now 150. And because it's auto, I never even noticed. So
good for businesses because a lot of the people paying for the subscriptions forget about them.
Yeah.
And that's why they make half of them off of their subscriptions.
If only I had a bookkeeper or CPA that was tracking that 150 versus $70 for me, Evan, I might have been okay. Who knows? Anyway, all right. So
that's where the budget comes into play too.
Quick plug, right? So questions for Krista. What do we got? Great material. Thank you very much for sharing. Did you hear something that some curiosity, or did you come with any other questions that you were hoping she could answer? Let's take this opportunity to throw some of that now.
I think it's one of those things where I don't know what I don't know.
Sure.
And so I ask if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Somebody on here probably knows what you don't know. So maybe somebody else can share. You've got something that you think could have been covered. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point though, Evan. Just throw it out there. A lot of CPAs, are open to phone calls at no charge. So, like Kay said, most of us are to referrals, for sure. And you never know where something's going to lead. I
recently started using a tax guy. I've just off of a few interactions I'm working with him. I've learned so much, but I've learned enough that I know a lot more that I don't know.
Yeah, it's a daunting world. And someone had said, and maybe it was Kay, said skill, will, time. I think that was a really good tagline. I wrote that down. I always look forward to tax. Some of my colleagues always laugh at me, but it is, what you're passionate about, people are going to, understand that. And, if you're your business, do well and you're going to help people. So
Well, it's sort of like a snowplow company looking forward to a bad winter.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And sometimes it's easier, and this is just something to think about for you all. I know it happened with me. My son-in-law, by the way, is a CPA and does taxes. And I bring that up only to say who doesn't do my taxes, right? And there's reasons, right? Is because again, the people that we know, it's a little bit harder to talk about, a little bit hard to be held accountable by people that you know well. They might have a hard time accountable because they know you and they don't want to come that way, right? And so sometimes it's a good referral that you can know, like, and trust. Isn't super close. That's not all in your business, right? So think about that as your services too. Cool. Anyone else? I'm not saying going, but I do want to share one more time before we move off of the screen. Okay. All right. So jot down her email address. If you want to route to her and have any other questions that you may not have wanted to ask on here. Perfect. You should have gotten Seth's email earlier too. We'll share the slides afterwards if you all want. Just throw yes into the chat if it's something that you like to see. And as usual, we'll put this up too, so that way others can access it later if you're interested. So real quick, somebody read the for me.
It is not necessary to do extraordinary things to get extraordinary results.
Yeah, I love that. And Warren Buffett might know a thing or two about money. It's consistent things. It's the consistent things. They don't have to be hard. They don't have to be crazy. They don't have to be amazing or extraordinary. To be consistent. And when we do the right things consistently, whether it's tracking, whether it's being held accountable, whether it's putting aside, whether it's investing it in the right way, when we do them consistently, we will get extraordinary results. So that's one of the reasons I like to talk about money, as much as I hate to talk about money when it comes to finances and taxes. You definitely don't want me going off about taxes, but it's a pertinent topic to have. So question for everybody here then, and I'd love you to write this down. Tax season is upon us. Some people I know finished them a week ago. I don't know how, but like they're already done. And some people here will be finishing them months after the due date. Or years, hopefully not, right? And so especially since I was here business-based. But what I'd love you to think about is based on the call or based on something that you know you need to do. As a coach, I encourage action. So what will you be working on in your business this week from this call, or again, just from a finance, bookkeeping, tax-based thing? Hang up the phone today. Tomorrow is Friday. Before the weekends, what action will you do involving your finances, your bookkeeping, your taxes, to make sure either this year is set up as we go to file, or that you're getting ready for next year? Write it down.
That's actually what my plan is to something down.
Okay,
Put it in
good. Love it. Love it. Yeah, add it to again, that's one of the best practices. How are you auditing your business? How often are you holding yourself financially accountable? Do you close your books every month? That's actually a question I ask in every business assessment when I'm starting a new client. Do you have a process to close your books each month? Super important part of the process in order to make sure that you are catching anything that might be offline. I mean, how many people have you heard of that have somehow gotten hacked? And if we're not keeping track of that money on a regular basis, easily, especially if the accounts are big enough, somebody could, over the course of a year, steal dollars if they're just taking small amounts every month without us tracking it. And then for a long time. I had a client one time, not the side story, spent $5,000 with me and didn't know. It was when I was working in a company and they had purchased something from us and they never picked it up. And it was just $5,000 sitting there. And finally, I just, he wasn't returning our calls or emails. I ran into him somewhere. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, I don't even remember buying that, dude. If that's still sitting in your warehouse, I'm sorry. Can I cancel it? Right? And I bring all that up. Corey, you got something to add?
Yeah, I'm sorry if you covered this already. I was wondering how much would you say filing as an S corp opposed to a sole proprietor LLC?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm going to defer that to Krista.
It really depends on your situation in particular. With an LLC, you are paying real estate based, you are paying kind of both sides, self-employment tax and the employee on the full profit of the business. In an S corporation, that's not the case. but there's different reasons for doing one or other. So some of that's legal, but there is a lot of different tax strategy around that too. But it really does depend on your specific business profile.
Is it dependent on income?
Can be. So if you're the only owner of the LLC, you're only filing on your personal tax return. If you file as an S corporation, elect the S corporation status, there's a separate tax filing. So right there, you have additional professional fees that you're going to need. They're going to do a little bit more work, come up with the numbers that go on the tax return than would be required to be put on just your individual Schedule C or E type business. So that's one factor. Depending if you have employees, there could be other factors as well. So it's like worth running a cost benefit based on a couple of different projection types. So
Okay. If I pay my W-2, is that a tax write-off for the company?
it is, but you will pay tax on your individual returns. It's kind of like an in and an out. And an S corporation, one of the big requirements with the IRS is that you pay yourself reasonable compensation. So you do have to receive a W-2. The IRS doesn't have any, I'll call like bright lines that say, okay, this is reasonable for your type of business. What it's supposed to be based upon is how much you would have to party to perform the same functions that you're performing in that type of business. So let's say your profit is $200,000 as an LLC, your tax on all of that, like both sides of it. So as an employee, as an employer. If it's an S corporation, you don't necessarily have to give yourself a $200,000 W-2. Maybe it's only $100,000. There's different deductions then too that would very complicated basically. But
so I'd let y'all connect offline using the email, Corey, reach out, and we'll move forward there. We got seconds. Actually, we just finished that 60 seconds. So next month, database domination. Everybody, quick round of applause for our experts. Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Krista, for joining us today. Really appreciate your insight. Database domination next month. We will have some guests and experts as well. And if you need any services, again, Seth's number, this is our information. You've got Krista's information. Feel free to reach out. Everybody knows you can always reach out to me for any additional insight. But thank you all for coming very much. And I'll let you get back to your day. Go be intentional about your business. Thank you.